The old enemy for me, the hamstrings. An area that I constantly neglect when it comes to mobility. I do it for a while and then I drop off, and then I do it for a while and then I drop off. And this is one of my biggest nemesis. It's one of my biggest problem points that I really should spend more time on. It's something that definitely is a problem for me. But because I don't feel it on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't cause me any pain or any issue that way. It's just when I go to do movements and when I realise that I'm struggling a little bit with it through my range of motion, when I analyse what the problem is, and it doesn't take very long these days, it always comes back to my hamstrings. They're always too tight. So, there are ways to stretch them, and I do some of these from time to time, and when I do it consistently, it does make a difference. The problem is I do it consistently, it makes a difference, and then because it's made a difference, I don't feel the urgency to do it anymore, and I let it drop off. So this is one I have to continually come back to all the time. But I suggest, if you've got tight hamstrings, don't be like me, and focus on trying to get these things as mobile as you possibly can. It'll definitely help in the long run. So for this one, we are going to use a piece of equipment, and we're going to use a resistance band. Now you can use a yoga belt for this, or just a long piece of a belt, like a normal belt that you would wear around your waist, or a piece of ribbon or something like that. Anything that you can push your foot against and it's not going to snap. However, whilst that will still do the job and you can still work against it, because this has got some give in it, I find this is an awful lot safer and is a lot more effective. So if you can use a resistance band, I'd strongly suggest you do so. If you don't have one, have a look down below in the description, and I'll post a link showing you the resistance bands that I would recommend, or some of the ones I would recommend. Not all resistance bands are equal, and especially when you're doing something like this where you're pushing quite a strong manner, what you don't want are weak resistance bands that are just going to snap on you. So all you're doing is you're going to lie on the floor. You've got the leg that you're going to work. You're going to have this band tied around the part of the foot nearest the toes. It's not in the middle, it's slightly more towards the toes. The reason for that is we're also going to use this to stretch the calves at the same time. You've got one chain, your posterior chain basically runs through your calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, and into your lower back. It's all really one chain. They're all interconnected and they all kind of work together. So while you're doing this, you may as well, because you're having to stretch through the foot joint and the ankle is going to flex anyway, instead of resisting it, just work with it and allow the stretch to go through both areas. So you're going through the hamstring and the calf, and to a certain extent the glute as well. So you pull that round, you're going to grab, so I've got this as a sort of a long looped band, which lets me have the equivalent of handles at the end, so both of these parts are going to go around my foot. If you've got the ones where it's just a band and then there are handles fixed to it, then that's great. Although you might find they're too long and you're going to have to shorten the band within it because you really need the resistance to kick in as soon as you start moving. If you find that you've only got one band and it's too much resistance and you're fighting against it too much, then still just try and grab the handles, but then just put your foot into the far away part of the loop. The other part will be draping down towards you, and that might feel a bit awkward, but it's still possible and it's still easy enough to do. So just try and work out what works for you. And obviously you can move your hands in and out as well a little bit, so that you can either have your elbows wedged against the floor in order to have a lot of extension or a lot of tension in the band, or you could have your hands out straight if the band was an awful lot shorter, so that you've got something to push against, but you can still get your leg all the way to the straight position. So I'll show you what I mean. So you can probably see there, not the most comfortable thing for me to do. I don't have the greatest range of motion in my hamstrings, and trying to get that full kick in my heel is not easy. But I can get some range of motion in it, and using the band definitely makes it something that I'm a bit more comfortable with. So it's something that I definitely think is worth working with if you've got tight hamstrings at all. And just keeping them mobile is obviously going to be beneficial. If you do any running, this is definitely something that you should be working with to try and make sure you've got that mobility. Yeah, the one other thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is don't forget to breathe. So as your knee's coming back, big breath in, and as you're kicking out, big breath out. So the more you can relax you while you're trying to extend this thing that's causing tension, the easier it's going to be, because the more relaxed that will be and the more it will push through and the more stretch you're going to get out of it. If you're tense and you're fighting against it, it's going to be very, very difficult. So try and relax, try and breathe. It's not going to be easy to do. That's easier said than done. But when you're in the position, you're trying to push your foot through. Try and take big deep breaths and try to relax yourself. Once you get into the motion and it becomes habitual, then maybe you can start to forget about it a little bit and just let the movement take over. Give it a try, see how you get on. There are many other ways to do this, so if this one doesn't work for you, then try one of the others. But I definitely say that this is worth giving a shot, especially with the resistance band. Have a shot, see how you get on, come back to me and let me know how you're doing.